Everyone that I spoke to in New York City recalls vividly that 9/11 was a beautiful day, especially in New York City in September, that the sun rose so bright that the day was crystal clear, and it was almost, as the song goes, you could see forever. And then something happened. The events that day were so much bigger than anyone could comprehend in a single glance that a mural just seems natural. I can remember my first feeling was that the people in the top of the World Trade Center at some point must have come to know they were not going to get out alive. And then for however long those buildings managed to survive after being hit, a little at a time, you lose hope. And death becomes a much greater reality, until in the end, death is triumphant. She is the queen of all life. She was in complete control, not only of the people in the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and as we later found out, in Pennsylvania, but she was in control of all of us, because who knew what was next? I think she's so beautiful and so rich in her simplicity that I guess because I'm getting old, I sort of envy her. Down in Tribeca, there's Chinatown and Little Italy. Anybody who knew anything about what was going on evacuated the city, tried to get out of the city as fast as they could. And they piled everything on top of one another, the children's laundry, the food, anything, to try and get out of there before the gases and the smoke and the dust took over their residence, because you couldn't keep it out. Not down in that neighborhood. That day, there was a lady, she was a black lady, who walked through the streets of Tribeca, and she was pure white with the dust of those buildings coming down. And they showed her over and over again, and finally somebody came up, a good Samaritan, realizing she was in shock, covered her up with his jacket, and took her to the hospital. She had gone that day for a job interview. And that was an interview she will never forget. The fireman, of course, tries to comfort Lady Liberty, who's the myth. Not a real person, but a real image. She popped out on January the 7th in 1941, and when they went into space, she has a very predominant place in our lives, even though she doesn't exist. Nobody could find the president. Everybody was asking questions, and no one had any answers. So, of course, the press corps has to ask the only one they can find, the myth, Lady Liberty. So by noonday, everyone was waiting for some form of official response. And over her head is the boom to record it. And all of them, all of us, were comforted by our faith, the rabbi, the priest, and the minister. And of course, their backup is the doctors, the nurses, the medics, the emergency teams. By the time evening began to come, the immediate crisis was over, and the reality of the day's events had begun to set in. And so, while the flag still flies, on that day, it's a little defunct, a little exhausted. And death leads all those souls to a higher place called peace, whether it's heaven or whether it's some other place. We can all take comfort in knowing those people were at least